It was a battle right from the start, and we were fortunate to have people in South Florida that from the get-go mobilized and stood up to pressures. Now, in the early 1980s, the first thing we had to deal with was the advent of AIDS. And that back then we weren't fighting AIDS, we were fighting people who had AIDS. And it was, back then it was called gay-related immunological deficiency, GRID. And nobody wanted to hear about it, but it was a group of gay men and women that got together in the Marlin Beach Hotel on A1A in Fort Lauderdale in the basement and put together the first AIDS organization, which recruited people for treatment and advocacy. It was an evolution of a small network of activists that met in a condo on A1A in Fort Lauderdale, never more than 7 or 10 people, on Tuesday nights, conveniently, magically called the Tuesday Night Group. And some of those people are past, many, and few, most are gone, but a few are still here. And quietly there was the emergence of a network of people that moved down here that wanted to reset their lives and become advocates for the gay community. The Marlin Beach Hotel was the epicenter of gay life in South Florida and the Copa. It was a marvelous hotel on A1A where gay people would congregate, and it was where the famous movie Where the Boys Are was filmed. I started becoming an advocate for gay rights because law enforcement made me. The Broward Sheriff's Office arrested 26 men in Deerfield Beach near the Howard Johnsons for alleged homosexual activity. But it's not like those kind of corrupt criminal practices don't go on today. Today's newspaper, South Florida Gay News, has a headline, Walking While Gay, because my associate publisher went to a park, John Prince Park in Palm Beach last week, because we learned that police were harassing homosexuals for just walking in the park. He got stopped twice. They didn't know they were stopping a reporter who was going to be doing a front page story. Now, just so you know, this not only happened this week, it happened 6 years ago when we started the paper. We did the Lust for Bust, how cops target gay men. And how I got involved in gay rights litigation was the 25 men wound up forming a class action to sue the Broward Sheriff's Office to stop that. I thought when I won a bunch of cases at that Butterfly Park trade winds on Sample Road, where gay men were unjustly arrested, wrongly prosecuted, inexcusably rounded up, I thought that the lead story on the news would say an illegal practice by Broward Sheriff's Office was ground to a halt today by a jurist decision asserting that homosexuals have constitutional rights. Great victory for Norm Kent, I hope they'd say. Instead, the lead story on the Channel 7 News was, a lawyer has made it easier for perverts to pick up your kids in the park. So the battle is being fought in many ways as much today as it was back then. You can't ever be apathetic. You always have to be assertive. You can't ever lay back. You have to stand up. And that's how we've gotten to where we are, by fighting back and saying, we're here, we're queer, we're not going anywhere. We're normal. We're not here to recruit and solicit your kids. We're here to start lives. And what I found out in the late 1990s here in Wilton Manors, when we were emerging as one of the most amazing same-sex centric communities in the country, is there are a wealth of people who had been, pilots and pioneers up north that came down here to start lives in guest houses and barbershops as engineers and electricians, as attorneys and accountants, and we've now become so that we're a majority on city commissions in this community and elsewhere. So much so that when the South Florida Gay News goes to publish during election weeks, I can't cover all the gay people that are running for office. When back then, to be open and gay would have been a major story. We wound up forming a group. Dennis Delia did, a young man, and Charlie Beto, another one, called GUARD, which stood for Gays United Against Repression and Discrimination. And they mobilized, and we didn't have just parades in Wilton Manors like you do now, because there's a comfort zone and apathy about the gay community. Then we had marches on the 17th Street Causeway in Fort Lauderdale, when the equivalent of the Christian Coalition had a rally at the Broward County Convention Center. God brought 300 people with signs and bullhorns to protest them in the street. And we did have rallies. We marched up Las Olas Boulevard and Federal Highway, forcing the city to give us Las Olas to assert our rights, saying we're as equal as everybody else that walks in parades in this town. But it's been a struggle that you never let up on. Well, we were fortunate. There were people like Robin Boterford and Alan Turl and Jamie Bloodworth and her partner, Marty Rubin, a wealth of other names I might be forgetting, Gary Steinsmith, who wound up to turn out to be a guy I wound up going to Hofstra with. I didn't even know it till I came down here, who were emboldened, and we had receptive politicians who heard our call, who had gay daughters and gay sons. Winning civil rights acclaim in Broward County was something that the Dolphin Democrats did a remarkable job in persevering. Civil rights lawyers petitioning for first domestic partnerships and then civil unions. We were lucky that we're in a tremendously democratic area in Dade and Broward, and to some extent Palm Beach. And those people in the city and county commissions were receptive to that. They did not fight it. They were supportive. They recognized that we were achievers and that we could do good things for the community, and they brought us within their embrace. And I'd like to think we've earned the right to maintain and keep those partnerships, and we have. I mean, like I said, we've got six gay and lesbian judges in Broward County. In Dade County, we have two husbands that are judges, in David Young and his partner Scott. So we've got a very good thing going.